This property is mine. The deed proves it. I suggest you leave right now.
Lights.
You are delusional if you think you can keep me off this lake. Look at this. You assured me everything was handled, but it's clearly not. I want an explanation right now.
My name is Ethan Wells, and the story I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined would happen in a peaceful suburban neighborhood, especially one I'd moved to in hopes of getting away from noise, stress, and unnecessary drama. But if you've ever dealt with an HOA, especially one led by a power-hungry Karen, you know peaceful doesn't last forever. I grew up fishing. Fishing wasn't just a hobby, it was my escape, my therapy, and honestly, the one thing that had kept me grounded through some pretty rough years. So when I bought a small home in Silver Creek Estates, I was thrilled to discover a beautiful lake right behind my property line. A quiet, sparkling, tree-lined lake that reminded me of summer mornings with my dad, sitting in silence, waiting for the water to ripple. I didn't bother anyone. I didn't break rules. I wasn't loud. I wasn't messy. All I did was sit on the bank with my rod and my thermos of coffee, and enjoy peace. At least, until she showed up. She nodded. 32 pages. We updated every month. I couldn't believe what she said next. And since you're already in violation, I'll be issuing you a fine. Consider this your first and final warning. I laughed. I honestly thought she was joking. Big mistake. Her face twisted like I had personally insulted her entire genealogy. This is not funny, Mr. Wells. Well, I said, you're telling me I can't fish on land behind my own house. That sounds funny. Karen stomped the ground so hard the gravel shifted. Rules are rules, she snapped. You will comply. That's when I knew I had to fight back, because people like Karen don't stop unless forced to. 3 days later, I came home from work to find a bright orange envelope taped to my front door like a badge of shame. Notice of violation: unauthorized fishing, disruption of wildlife, possible contamination of water, fine, $350. I stared at the paper so long my eyes burned. Contamination of water? What did they think I was doing? Pouring motor oil into the lake? I wasn't angry, not yet. Mostly I was confused. I walked over to my neighbor, Angela, who'd lived there for 6 years. She sighed the moment she saw the envelope. Karen got you, didn't she? Got me? I asked. For sitting on the shore. Angela looked around, lowered her voice, and said something that made my stomach drop. Karen has fined over 20 residents. For everything. We had a guy fined for having a truck that looked too commercial. Another woman was fined because her wind chimes were too loud. Is that even legal? No, she said, but most people pay because they're afraid of her. Afraid? I wasn't afraid. I was irritated. And when I get irritated, I get stubborn. I spent the next couple nights reading through the extended rulebook. It was ridiculous: no fishing unless approved by the HOA board. No boats unless they were aesthetically appropriate. No feeding wildlife. No outdoor seating on the lake side after 8 p.m. No unsupervised children near the water. No foreign materials making contact with the shoreline. Foreign materials? Like fishing lines. This was insanity. But buried at the bottom of page 28 was something interesting. Silver Creek HOA maintains leased rights to the lake for recreational purposes. Leased rights. Not ownership. That wording stuck with me. Because if the HOA only leased the lake, then someone else owned it. And that someone was about to become very important to me. After some digging at the county office, I discovered the lake belonged to a family named Dalton. They had owned the entire lake and the surrounding wetlands for decades. But the HOA had been leasing it. And not even an exclusive lease. In fact, the county clerk told me something that made my heart skip: the Daltons have been trying to sell that lake for years. Can't find buyers due to maintenance issues. Sell. As in, I could buy it. The gears in my head started turning. I drove out to the Dalton property, an old farmhouse at the edge of town. I met the owner, an elderly man named Frank. Frank welcomed me like an old friend. "Let me guess," he said, "that HOA's bothering you." I nodded. "They fined me for fishing." He actually laughed. "Son, I've hated those people for a decade. They're lucky I even let them touch that water." I swallowed. If, hypothetically, someone else owned the lake, could the HOA still enforce their rules? Frank shook his head. "Not unless the owner let them." "And, are you still looking to sell?" He crossed his arms, studied me for a moment, and said, "You got money?" "I've got enough," I replied. He smiled, a real smile, the kind of smile that changes stories. "Then let's talk numbers." That was the moment everything changed. 2 weeks later, after inspections, signatures, and paperwork, I owned the lake. Every inch of shoreline. Every square foot of water. Every legal right attached to it. For the first time, I felt something powerful. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just, freedom. And maybe a little excitement at the idea of what Karen was about to experience. I didn't notify the HOA immediately. I wanted the moment to be perfect. But fate beat me to it. One peaceful Sunday morning, I was sitting by the water again, same spot, same fishing rod, same coffee. Birds chirped. Frogs croaked. It was perfect. Then I heard sirens. I looked up and saw a police car pulling into my driveway. Behind it, arms folded like a triumphant dictator. "Karen." She marched straight toward me as 2 officers approached. "There he is," she shouted. "That man is trespassing on private HOA property." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Sir, is this your house?" "Yes," I said calmly. "And you're fishing?" "Yes." Karen shrieked, "He's violating HOA bylaws. He's contaminating the lake. I held up a document, folded neatly in my pocket. "Actually, officers, I'm the owner of this lake." Karen froze. The officers exchanged looks. I handed them the deed. The senior officer read it, then looked at Karen like she had grown a second head. "Ma'am," he said, "this lake is legally owned by Mr. Wells." "No. That's impossible. The HOA has a lease," I said. "A lease that expired last month. Which I chose not to renew." The officer nodded. "He's in the right. You called us for nothing." Karen's face turned the color of spoiled milk. But, he can't, "Oh," I said, "I can. And we're just getting started." Her mouth opened and closed like a confused goldfish. The officers left. Karen stormed away. And I sat back down and cast my line again. Peace restored. For the moment. Because the war was only beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a crystal clear plan. Not anger. Not retaliation. Just strategy. Because people like Karen don't fear confrontation. They fear consequences. And I was about to give her a lesson in both. 2 days later, the county commissioner's office called and requested I bring all documents related to Whisper Lake. "Perfect," I said. When I arrived, you won't believe who was already sitting in the lobby. Karen. Clipboard. Sunglasses indoors. Mouth pressed in a tight little line like she'd bitten into a lemon. She saw me and gave a stiff smile. "Mr. Lane." "Karen. You're here about the confusion over the lake." "Confusion," I repeated, trying not to laugh. "Sure." She adjusted her sunglasses. "You do realize lakes can be considered public assets? Not when someone owns the land beneath them." She tensed. She didn't know that detail. Yet. Before she could respond, Commissioner Harris opened the door. Mr. Lane. Ms. Atwood. Come in. Commissioner Harris flipped through my grandfather's deed, the survey maps, and the historic plot records. After 5 minutes, he leaned back. Well, he said, this is pretty clear. Karen leaned forward. Clear. As in he's violating community property rights? Harris shook his head. No, Ms. Atwood. Clear as in Whisper Lake is 100% private property. The shoreline, water rights, dock access, all of it is owned by Mr. Lane. Karen's jaw dropped. That can't be right. Our maps, your maps, Harris interrupted, were based on assumptions the developer made 20 years ago. Assumptions, not legal filings. Her face twitched. Harris continued, not only does the HOA have no authority over the lake, you've been holding events and collecting fees on private land. I swear I saw her soul leave her body for a second. Those were community gatherings, she stammered. On land you don't control, Harris said firmly. Legally, Mr. Lane could charge your HOA back rent. I glanced at Karen. Don't worry, I said. I haven't decided yet. Her eyes widened with panic. When word spread around the neighborhood, the panic set in fast. A few residents approached me that week. Wait, the HOA never owned the lake. Karen told us we had to pay for lake maintenance. Did she know she was lying? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The doubt was enough. Then something even better happened. Residents rallied against the HOA. They demanded emergency meetings. They wanted answers, refunds, transparency. Ben, my buddy who loved drama more than coffee, called me laughing. Dude, they're turning on each other. Karen's blaming the board is blaming her, and half the neighborhood wants a vote to dissolve the HOA. I shook my head, smiling. But I wasn't done yet. I sat at my cabin desk drafting a letter, simple, clean, and legally bulletproof. Notice of restricted access private property, Whisper Lake it stated, no one may use the lake without permission, no HOA events allowed, no fishing, boating, or swimming without a license agreement, all previous access rights revoked. I posted copies on the dock, the trail entrance, the HOA bulletin board, community mailbox, and I sent one directly to Karen within 2 hours. She was banging on my door. Daniel, she snapped. What is the meaning of this? You read the letter, I said calmly. Access is restricted. You can't do that. I can. And did. Her face flushed bright red. A small vein started twitching under her left eye. This lake is part of our lifestyle amenities, she barked. Not anymore. She slammed her clipboard against her thigh. You're being unreasonable. Karen, you fined me for fishing on my own property. I think I've been pretty patient. She pointed a shaking finger at the lake. You can't just take it away. I narrowed my eyes. Karen, I didn't take anything away. You simply lost something that was never yours. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Opened it again. Speechless. That's when she said the line that made me realize just how deep her delusion ran. You're ruining the community. No, I said quietly. You did that all by yourself. She stormed off, muttering something about lawyers and over my dead body. Another emergency meeting was called, this time with nearly full attendance. I didn't sit in the back. I sat right in the front row. Karen was at the podium, flipping through papers with trembling hands. Residents, we are dealing with a complex legal misunderstanding. But rest assured, a voice shouted from the crowd, you lied to us, Karen. Another, you charged us for lake events. And another, you threatened to fine a man for fishing on his own land. Karen tried to stay composed, but the room was boiling. Finally she snapped, everything I did was for the community. If he had just cooperated, I stood up. Cooperated, I repeated. Meaning give up my rights? It's community unity, she snapped. No, I said, it was control. Silence. Dead, heavy silence. The board members whispered. People muttered angrily. One resident shook his head and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "We need a new HOA leadership." Karen stiffened. Her eyes darted around. No, no, you can't do this. I built this community. I spoke softly, on rules you made up. Her face went pale. A motion was made. A vote was taken. It wasn't even close. Karen was removed as HOA president. Removed from the board. Removed from any committee or authority role. When the votes were counted, she didn't say a word. She grabbed her clipboard, clutched it to her chest like a lifeline, and hurried out the door. She didn't even look back. Karen's removal should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because while she lost her title, she didn't lose her obsession. And I didn't realize how far she would go until the day she tried to sneak into the lake at dawn. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with the day after the vote, when everything really started to unravel. The day after Karen was removed, I walked down to Whisper Lake, expecting peace. Instead, a crowd of confused residents was standing at the water's edge, staring at the new private property, no access signs like they were reading their own eviction notice. A middle-aged man approached me cautiously. "Sir, are we really not allowed to use the lake anymore?" I nodded. "Not unless we come to an agreement." Oh. His shoulders sagged. We honestly didn't know Karen never had authority. We all just assumed that she was telling the truth. I said gently. "You're not the first." He sighed. "We're sorry she caused you trouble." Another woman chimed in, "We just want things to go back to normal." I gave a small smile. "Then maybe your next HOA board should talk to me respectfully. I'm not trying to punish the neighborhood, just protect what's mine." Heads nodded. People understood now. Karen was the problem. Not the lake. Not me. 2 days later, I got an email from the interim HOA president, a quiet guy named Colin Brooks. "Mr. Lane, we'd like to schedule a discussion regarding lake access for residents. We hope to resolve this peacefully." Colin, finally, someone reasonable. We set a meeting at my cabin porch. Colin arrived with 2 other board members, not a clipboard in sight, not a Karen-style scowl among them. Colin cleared his throat. "We want to apologize on behalf of the association. Karen overstepped her bounds." "That's putting it lightly," I chuckled. He nodded. "We'd like to propose a solution. A fair one." I leaned back. "I'm listening." He placed a folder on the table. Lake access agreement. Residents allowed fishing, no HOA events without permission, no changes to shoreline, small annual fee to help with lake upkeep. Simple. Reasonable. Respectful. "I think I can work with this," I said. Everyone exhaled with relief. But then one board member added nervously, "There is one more thing." I raised an eyebrow. "What?" Karen called an emergency homeowners meeting. She's trying to get reinstated. My jaw tightened. Of course she was. Of course she couldn't let go. What's she planning? I asked. The board member swallowed hard. She said she has new evidence proving the HOA controls the lake. I stared at him. What evidence? He looked away. She won't tell anyone. The emergency HOA meeting was held 2 days later. It was packed. Residents swarmed the community center like it was a courtroom, whispering, pointing, muttering. And at the front of the room stood Karen. Clipboard. Sunglasses. A grin that made me instantly suspicious. When she noticed me walk in, her smirk widened. Well, if it isn't the lake tyrant himself. I didn't respond. Colin banged the gavel. We're here to discuss Ms. Atwood's claim about lake jurisdiction. Karen strutted to the front. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, I have uncovered new documentation that proves Whisper Lake is part of the original development plan. People murmured. Colin frowned. Karen, we checked county records. There's nothing. She held up a paper dramatically. This, she boomed, is the Whispering Pines master map. The room went silent. She slapped it onto the projector. A map appeared on screen, and I immediately saw the problem. It was fake. Not bad looking, but fake. How did I know? Because the shape of the lake was wrong. The shoreline wasn't accurate. And the developer name printed at the bottom was the wrong company altogether. Colin squinted. Where did you get this? It was in the old HOA files, she lied. I stepped forward. That map has been photoshopped. Gasps. Whispers. Karen stiffened. You can't prove that. I smiled. Yes, I can. I reached into my folder and pulled out the original survey map, the certified one from the county. This is the real Whisper Lake outline, I said, placing it beside her fake printout. See the difference? People leaned in. The difference was obvious. Karen's map had a completely different shoreline. A teenager in the back yelled, she literally moved the lake. Laughter erupted. A few people clapped. Karen's eyes darted wildly. That's just a minor clerical, I cut her off. Karen, this isn't a mistake. It's fraud. Her face collapsed. The room erupted again. Someone shouted, she forged documents. Another yelled, is that even legal? The board huddled quickly, whispering. Then Colin stood. Karen Atwood, you are hereby banned from the HOA board and all committees permanently. Karen's mouth fell open. You can't ban me. Oh, we absolutely can, Colin said, voice firm, and additionally, he continued, we are opening an investigation into your actions regarding HOA funds, unauthorized documents, and false claims about property jurisdiction. Karen's voice cracked. No, you can't do this to me. I built this community. No, a resident shouted, you ran it into the ground. She pointed wildly at me. This is your fault. You turned them against me. I shrugged. You did that all by yourself, Karen. No. She stomped her foot like a child. You don't get it. HOAs need order. Control. Rules. Without me, this place will fall apart. I stepped forward. Karen, if your power depends on controlling other people's property, you never had power to begin with. She froze. Silent. Deflated. Broken. Then she grabbed her clipboard, like it was the last piece of her identity, and stormed out of the room. The door slammed, and with that, she was gone. Residents surrounded me, thanking me, shaking my hand. Someone joked, so, does this mean we need to knock before fishing now? I laughed. Only if you're planning on catching the big bass. Colin approached quietly. Daniel, thank you. For saving this community from her. I nodded. She was never the problem. Power was. He smiled sadly. You're not wrong. After Karen's meltdown and exit, the community center buzzed like a shaken beehive. People were talking over each other, reading the fake map again, laughing, cursing under their breath, shaking their heads. It should have felt triumphant. But I couldn't help thinking. Was this really over? Because people like Karen don't disappear quietly. Not unless something, or someone, finally forces them to. And as fate would have it, that moment came faster than I expected. 3 days after the meeting, a white SUV rolled up my driveway. A county official stepped out, clipboard, vest, ID tag. Mr. Lane, he asked. That's me. I'm Deputy Inspector Glenn Richards. We're here regarding multiple reports filed by residents about forged documents submitted by former HOA President Karen Atwood. I crossed my arms. I figured something like that was coming. He nodded grimly. We've traced the fake map she presented. It wasn't just edited. It was submitted to our office 2 weeks ago, as part of a jurisdictional appeal. My eyebrows shot up. She tried to take the lake legally. Worse, he said. She claimed you were illegally occupying HOA property. She attempted to redefine the lake boundaries. I blinked. She filed that under oath. Exactly why we're here. He handed me a paper. Official notice, investigation and charges pending, forgery. Fraud. Illegal submission of altered documents, he said. It's serious. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just shook my head. I warned her, I said quietly. I really did. He nodded. Some people don't understand boundaries until they hit one. You'd think that after being exposed, banned, and investigated, Karen would finally back down. But no. People like her don't break cleanly. They spiral. And her spiral came on a foggy Tuesday morning. I had just stepped onto my porch with a cup of coffee when I heard frantic splashing from the lake. Hey! Hey! Get out of there! I jogged toward the water. And there she was, Karen. Standing knee-deep in the lake, holding a giant trash bag, ripping out my private property signs. What are you doing? I shouted. She whirled around, soaking wet, hair a mess. This is community property, she shrieked. You can't own a lake. No one can. You think this land belongs to you? It belongs to all of us. I stepped onto the dock. No, Karen, I said calmly. It belongs to the person who bought it. The county already confirmed that. She screamed, liars. You're all liars. She threw the signs into the water. Deputy Richards, who had been visiting nearby residents for statements, heard the commotion and rushed over. What's going on? He asked. I pointed at her. She's vandalizing my property again. He took one look at the torn signs floating in the water and sighed. Ms. Atwood, he said firmly, step out of the lake. She shook her head violently. No. I'm not leaving. You can't make me. You all stole my authority. Ma'am, he repeated, step out of the lake or I will have to escort you. When she didn't move, he waded in, grabbed her arm gently, and led her out of the water. She was shaking with rage. You'll regret this, Daniel, she screamed. I'll fight you forever. I exhaled slowly. No, I said. You're done fighting. And for the first time. Her expression cracked. Her face fell. Her shoulders slumped. Her voice broke. I just wanted order, she whispered. Deputy Richards guided her to his SUV. Sometimes, I said quietly, order isn't the same as control. She didn't look at me. She couldn't. That was the last time I ever saw Karen Atwood. Over the next few months, Whispering Pines transformed. Gone were the aggressive letters, the ridiculous rules, the patrol-style inspections. The board put up a message, we are rebuilding, with transparency and kindness. They discontinued dozens of unnecessary fines. They cancelled mandatory appearance audits. They started real community events, ones people actually enjoyed. Colin visited me one afternoon holding a folder. Daniel, he said, we finished drafting our agreement. The new board approved it unanimously. It stated, heavy checkmark full acknowledgement that Whisper Lake belonged solely to me. Heavy checkmark residents could still fish or kayak, only with my permission. Heavy checkmark no HOA rules would ever apply to the lake. Heavy checkmark I would receive financial compensation for maintenance. Heavy checkmark and best of all, the HOA publicly apologized for all past actions. I flipped through it slowly. You know, I said, this could have been avoided months ago. Colin laughed weakly. Trust me, we all know that now. I signed the agreement. He shook my hand with both of his. You saved this place, he said. I just wanted peace, I replied. And now you'll have it. It's been 9 months since the entire valley showdown. The lake is calm again. Kids fish in the mornings. Old folks sit on the pier at sunset. Wild ducks nest in the reeds. Sometimes neighbors bring baked bread or vegetables from their gardens. And every once in a while someone jokes, so, how much is the fishing toll today? I always laugh. For you. Free. Word is she moved 2 towns over. Rumor says she tried to run for board president again. But the community Googled her name, and the forged map case popped up. She lost in the first vote. Some endings write themselves. When someone uses fake authority to control you. Don't yell. Don't argue. Don't fight on their level. Just know your rights. Stand your ground. And let the truth deliver the knockout punch. Because bullies crumble fast when facts hit harder than fists.